Well, hey there, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Reality Bites as we continue our fascinating journey into the ancient and mystical wisdom of Hermeticism with the 7 Hermetic Principles of reality. And if you're joining me for the first time and you're wondering, what the heck is Hermeticism? Well, I do encourage you to go back to our previous podcast, in particular, episode 1 in this Reality Bites series, where I explore and just explain a little bit about Hermeticism as told in the Kybalion and the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus. But as I have said in the previous podcast, my intention and hope is that, first of all, that I introduce you to these principles if you haven't already heard of them, and then to do your own contemplation and to be mindful and aware of where these principles show up in your life, how they influence your life, and also how you could best utilize them to co-create your reality. So just to recap, we've explored the first 4 principles: the principle of mentalism, the principle of correspondence, the principle of vibration, and the principle of polarity, which leads us to the 5th principle, the principle of rhythm, which states everything flows out and in, everything has its tides, all things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. So this principle is all about movement and motion. It states that nothing is at rest. Nothing is really still. Even if you quieten the mind and sit there in peace and stillness, or even if you're in nature and it's quiet, there's still a sensation, a rhythm, a feeling that there is movement, a vibration, a flow, if you like. And the 5th principle states that between the opposing poles, there exists an inherent rhythm. So we can't have this rhythm unless we have some kind of reference point, like the pendulum swinging from left to right. And think about nature. There's so much rhythm in nature. The ocean flows in and out, the ebbs and flows. Our breathing, we exhale and inhale. The beating of our heart has its own rhythm, cycles. And of course, the seasons are, just a beautiful example of the rhythm that we go through, which is really important because we go through stages and cycles in life. And there's that old saying that, don't judge someone's life by the chapter that you observe or walk into, because we all have these chapters and stages and rhythms in life. So the principle truly does embody this truth that everything exists in a measured motion, from here to there, moving in and out, swinging from one spectrum to another. Think about the weather and emotions. It's always changeable, mutable, if you like. So there's always a rhythm at play. And I think that it's also important to point out that it's relevant and important, this ability to come back to this sort of balance and homeostasis, to come back to sort of a neutral point. As told in the Kybalion, they call it the mental law of neutralization, which basically, the way I interpret it, is that the body, nature, always wants to find this balance point. So it never rests at one extreme or the other extreme. And you think about your nervous system or your breathing or your heart rate. If it gets stimulated and responds to a stress, yes, all these, your heart rate elevates, your blood pressure elevates, etc. But it always comes back to this balance or homeostasis, which is a natural resting point. And of course, this encompasses the dualistic nature of everything, as we discussed in the principle of polarity. And as with all the other principles that we've discussed, we can learn to utilize them and interpret them to create our reality. And the principle of rhythm at this time, I believe, is very important, as one of the big themes, if you like, is that humanity is going through a really challenging and tumultuous time. And it's interesting that as a collective, as a humanity, as a species, we really are at a particular stage or cycle, if you like, as more and more people are awakening, as more and more light is being shone into the darkness and the systems, and as we're questioning our reality more and more. And I which leads me to this idea that as we are evolving and moving through these different cycles, what sort of cycle are we in right now? And many ancient teachings and wisdom traditions understood time as a cycle, that it wasn't linear, that there was this kind of this circular idea, which they may have got from obviously the planets and the way our reality is governed. But these circle of ages were known as the yugas by the ancient Sanskrit teachings. And like the 4 seasons in our year, there are 4 yugas. And one full cycle was known as the Mahayuga. And each of these cycles were understood to have distinct themes and spiritual lessons for humanity. And when you think about it, if we are going through a challenging cycle or time, it truly is an opportunity for us to evolve and grow. There always has to be some sort of challenge, or you think of the hero's journey as well, some sort of challenge or obstacle to overcome, and ultimately something has to die in order for something new to be born. But the 4 yugas, just briefly, are known as the Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dvarapara Yuga, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, and the Kali Yuga. And a lot of the philosophers and spiritualists and so forth believe that we're in the Kali Yuga cycle, which I believe is more along the lines of the darkness being exposed and more of things crumbling and dismantling and being destroyed. And therefore, it's sort of preceding the next cycle, if you like, the next yuga, which is Dvapara, and which is more about the rebirth and regrowth, the way I understand it. And the ancient Greeks also had these names for the cycles or ages of human civilization, known as gold, silver, bronze, and iron ages. So it's really interesting. I think it's a really good illustration of the principle of rhythm and how civilization goes through its own natural cycles, how we as a human being go through our own natural cycles. But there's always this spectrum, there's always this swing from one end of the spectrum to the other, which is comforting to know also, because it means that you're never stuck. Even though it can feel like you can be stuck at a certain point in your life, the truth of the matter is that nothing is actually still. There is always movement. There is always flux. And it's that old saying, this too shall pass. So it's always good to remember that no matter where you are at life, no matter what you're going through, every high will invariably come to a low, and every low will invariably lead to another high. So it's true that life truly does go through its own natural cycles, and we can learn to best understand and appreciate every cycle we go through as either opportunities for growth and deeper exploration. And when things are, easier, then we can just relax and enjoy those periods as well. A little bit like summer and winter. I know I'm a summer person, so things are a lot lighter and easier in summer, and I always, in the depths of winter, always look forward to spring and summer, and that reminds me of this kind of balance in nature. So you go through the cold, dark winter to come through to the other side, to the light and the sunshine and all that good stuff that summer brings. So thank you again for joining me on this exploration and journey into the 7 Hermetic Principles of reality. I do hope you can join me on the next episode of this series, where we will explore the 6th principle of Hermeticism, which of course is the principle of cause and effect, where every cause has its effect and every effect has its cause. We're going to go deeper into that in the next episode. Until then, I do hope that your reality is going well and that you are flowing along no matter which part of the spectrum of rhythm you happen to find yourself in. Until next time, catch you then.